Hey guys, in this month's Disney Rewind, I'm going to be talking about The Avengers, released back in 2012. So, before I head off into my thoughts and feelings on Avengers, definitely spoilers most likely in this video, and there could even be spoilers for just other movies in the MCU. So yeah, if you're just not totally caught up with the MCU, you might want to steer clear of this video. So let's get going, you guys. My rewatch of Avengers, the very first Avengers movie. Oh boy, 2012, you guys, seriously, this movie is that old? Whew, it makes me feel a little old. This is definitely not my first rewatch of this movie. If anything, it might be about my 10th rewatch, possibly, maybe more. I remember when this movie first came out. If I'm not mistaken, I think I went to a midnight screening of this movie, saw it with a packed theater of crazy fans, and yeah, I think after this movie was released, because it stayed out for a pretty long time in theaters, I went to see this movie in theaters quite a number of times. Okay. And then yeah, even once I bought the DVD, I watched it on DVD a couple times. So yeah, this is definitely easily like my 10th plus rewatch of this movie. And it is, I think, out of all of the MCU movies, we have like 20 plus at this point. This is probably easily one of the most rewatchable, there's a lot for me personally that I find personally rewatchable, but I think just for like general audiences, general fans, this one is definitely one of the most easily rewatchable. That's why it made so much money in theaters. Yeah, guys, people were going for rewatch viewings of this movie. This first Avengers movie is just classic and iconic, easily rewatchable, like I said, just so fun and action-packed and thrilling, and I just love how all of these characters unite. And not only that, I love the fact that all these characters don't even like each other initially. You guys, that's what makes this movie so interesting and fun as well, because all of these characters come from completely different walks of life. They all have their own unique personalities, their own backstories, especially if you've seen all of the movies prior to this first Avengers movie. You know that they all have their own tics and vulnerabilities and strengths and whatnot. So, of course, we're going to have all these people coming together and clashing, and it makes for some really entertaining watching to see how are they going to overcome their obstacles with each other. How are these groups, this group of just random misfits in a sense, how are they all going to come together and unite in this one cause to save Earth? So yeah, that's just really the big fun of this movie, I think, is seeing everybody bickering with one another, nobody getting along. They all have their own unique perspectives and views and opinions, especially like Tony Stark. You guys, Tony Stark just rubs everybody the wrong way in this movie, and I was totally here for it. And I think what else works with this movie so brilliantly, just the script is so top-notch. You guys, is it one of the best scripts in the world? Probably not, but it's still just the way this overall story is handled and constructed, and the overall execution of this movie, I think, what makes it work. The script really knows how to kind of finally balance out how each character gets reintroduced into the movie, one by one, how each of them kind of start pairing off and talking to one another. All of that just works really cohesively and understandably. And I think another big thing too, I think this movie, you don't necessarily have to have watched all of the other movies prior to this. Now, that being said, like any new movies that come out like now, it's like you have to watch every other movie that has come before, and even like all of the Disney Plus TV shows. You have to rewatch or not, or just watch. You know, you have to catch up with every other damn thing in this universe at this point to understand what the hell's going on in some of these movies. So that's what makes this very first Avengers movie just so easily rewatchable and so easy to just get in, even for the very first time if you've never gotten into it. You don't necessarily have to have viewed everything else that came before. That's what I love. And another big thing that quite honestly works for me with this movie is definitely using Loki as the prime villain, the prime antagonist of this whole movie. Yes, we do kind of get that reveal, you know, at the end credits sequence that really who is the mastermind behind what's going on in this movie is Thanos. But for the most part, you know, Loki is your big bad villain in this movie, and he, to me, is what really gets this movie together, weirdly enough, you know, because he's a big enough threat, you know, he's a big enough threat to these characters and their way of life and their world, but he's not like Thanos level threat, you know, like if this first movie had Thanos as the big villain, I think this movie would have stumbled and fell apart. I like the fact that the MCU built up each time, built up Thanos, so that way by the time you do get to Thanos in Infinity War and Endgame and whatnot, he comes across as a big, genuine threat and whatnot. So I like that this very first movie, it focuses in on just Loki, you know, not any sort of new villain at all. Loki is a character we've already been introduced to. He's already been established in a previous movie, and it really makes him super compelling and interesting in this movie, that he's kind of rather multifaceted in some ways, and he has a lot of depth and nuance, and a lot of that is thanks to Tom Hiddleston's performance more than anything, I think. So yeah, that for me, the fact that Loki is the big villain of this movie is the number one factor that quite honestly kind of helps keep this movie together and gels it together, and what helps get all these characters kind of united eventually, you know. What else to talk about this movie? I just don't know what else to talk about with this movie. I think there's a lot to be said, but I mean there's other reviews and deep dives and in-depth explorations of this movie, you know. I'm just one person. But yeah, I mean there's just so much to love about this movie. I really like how everything stacks up, you know. I like how the movie is set up, you know. We get the big action set piece right at the start of this movie where we're reintroduced back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and we have Nick Fury and Maria Hill and Agent Coulson, you know. I love how we start with that big action set piece, introducing Loki into the movie, introducing what the big threat is, you know, with the whole Tesseract and whatnot. I love how it opens with that action set piece, and then we kind of go right from that into reestablishing, setting up all of these various characters that we've been introduced to. I like that the movie takes its sweet time doing that. You know, it probably takes a good 45 minutes until you kind of get to some of the next big things that happen with this movie. And then, yeah, everything builds quite wonderfully to the next big, huge action set piece, which is, you know, the big S.H.I.E.L.D. ship, you know, up in the sky and whatnot. And yeah, Hawkeye coming into the equation, Hawkeye who's all possessed. Yeah, all of that, and the ship getting infiltrated, and the fact that Loki, you know, he kind of masterminded all this. He wanted all this to happen, and yeah, set off the Hulk and whatnot. You know, it's quite brilliant and strategic when you think about it. So I love kind of how that whole next action set piece gets, and yeah, then we get the dramatic, sad death of Agent Coulson. You guys, oh my god. Seriously, that was a shocker when Agent Coulson died, and it was genuinely like upsetting and sad. But yeah, little did we know that like within the next year we would get the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, and Agent Coulson would just rise from the dead, you guys. You know, seriously, I need to have a rewatch of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and do like a whole freaking review on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't extremely popular, but boy oh boy, I freaking love that show. So yeah, we get the death of Agent Coulson, which builds up quite nicely, and yeah, like him being the determining factor that finally kind of pushes them all together, you know, even though Nick Fury kind of manipulates the situation a wee bit, you know, with the cards. And then, yeah, of course, the Battle for New York, classic, iconic, and yeah, one of the big things that kind of carries through into the rest of the MCU. A lot of characters are always referencing, hey, the Battle of New York, this and that. Because even like the Marvel Netflix shows, I know like Daredevil at some point mentioned the Battle of New York. You know, like even on those shows, they would kind of randomly mention it every so often to let you know that it's part of their universe in some sort of weird way too. You know. So yeah, like the Battle for New York, just so well done, you guys. Everybody gets their moment to shine in this big battle, heroes and villains alike. It just works. I love just the choreography of the whole thing. It never gets muddled or confusing or overwhelming. I think it's all just handled to perfection, quite honestly. And yeah, you're genuinely kind of a little concerned for Tony Stark there at the end. I thought the first time I watched this movie, it's like, dear God, they're going to kill Tony Stark. So yeah, I love this movie. Once again, so easily rewatchable and enjoyable. And like I said, like my 10th plus time viewing this movie, and it moves so quickly. It always moves so quickly, even though I know exactly where it's going. It moves so quickly every single time I rewatch it, and I just have so much fun with it every single time I rewatch it. And I did. I ended the movie thinking, I want to rewatch it again. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on Avengers, which I believe ends phase 1 of the MCU, if I'm not mistaken. So that is it for this video. In the comments below, do you guys love this first Avengers movie as much as I do, or do you have some more complaints about it? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.